On the road to changing the world. Arda didn't even know when Salisfaf actually moved out. Indeed, it would be truer to say that he vanished unnoticed like a wet spot from blotting paper. He was away for longer and longer stretches, and then he appeared again from somewhere, lively and revved up, and sat at the kitchen table, rattling on enthusiastically about his plans to change the world, plans that would take place imminently and with a great bang, and he, Salisfaf, would lead the charge. Arda was quite sure that, in his head, Salisfaf had put together a new state and a new government, and he earnestly discussed this or that person's suitability for some important office. It wouldn't, of course, be the people who were simply throwing their weight about here and there, but those that Salisfaf personally considered qualified for the role's responsibilities. "We'll get rid of him," he announced with conviction. "We might keep him. Quite a normal guy, has normal ideas." Arda listened with half an ear, made coffee, and got out some clean bedding, and her mind was somehow totally absent. Early in the dawn light, Salisfaf hopped up and went off in some unknown direction. When he showed his face again 3 days later, it was the same story, although the man who'd formerly received a pardon had now been struck mercilessly from the list. "No, we'll have Albin J. Kmersky instead. He's already respected in society. He's kind of a grey eminence, actually. It's time for him to get a little responsibility." Arda thought that a man who wanted responsibility would probably have already taken it. "I think he's awfully cautious. He probably doesn't want to mix himself up in anything. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy who picks sides, threads the needle, or maybe not actually so much that, as the kind who just wants to sit at home in an armchair and bandy thoughts around. You kick him out of there and he's like a snail without a shell. Well, think about what we'll offer him. Any normal person would accept the job. This is an opportunity to rebuild the whole shebang according to your own truths. Don't just gripe at issues from a corner somewhere. Come and change things." Zawisza examined his list, which had been written in pencil. "We're in negotiations," he declared. "It's not like a coup or anything. Just the Żytał newspaper's new members." 3 weeks later, Arda dared to grab the young man's plastic bags from under the bed and put them in the front room. He must not be coming back, she thought, hopefully. He'd taken the typewriter ages ago. Mistress Nosek cleaned the floor, gathered the notebooks, scrap paper and typing paper into a pile, and put Salisfaf's futon up against the wall. She thought for a moment, and then hauled the TV in front of the futon, turned the dial on and felt immense relief. "I'll sleep here tonight," she thought victoriously. That evening there would even be an Andrzej Wajda film on TV. There wasn't a peep from or about Zawisza for the next several months. Only later did the good mistress find out that, inexplicably, Salisfaf had been residing in the Balkans, in Yugoslavia, in the beautiful city of Bitola, just near the Greek border. How some people look out! Gets money from God knows where, lives like a fly on the wall, sleeps in some well-wisher's cold back room, and then, what do you know, he's abroad. The story was true. In the meantime, a few things had happened that Arda, who kept her distance from the world's tumult, hadn't heard about. A tsunami had washed over a little pond, because Abram Godolski had had a golden idea. "How'd it be, boys, if we got you a real job? Do the same as before, except you'd get real money for it. It's only natural." "Listen," Salisfaf answered, "that's not going to happen. No one wants us to work for them. We've been writing for 5 years, and all we've gotten out into the real world is an article in a newspaper and a screenplay they cut all of our thoughts out of anyway. Honestly, for the real world, we don't exist." "Well," Abram grinned, "that's because you don't know the right people. I do. Why do you guys think Poland needs 50 newspapers and magazines? To create work for people like you, so that you have a warm room and a coffee pot on the table. You can come to work when you want. Come at 5 a.m. if you want, or 5 p.m. Nothing will happen if you don't come at all some days. Your salary will tick on anyway. You certainly know how to put an issue together. What's the problem?" And Salisfaf was almost ready to believe him. "But where then?" he asked. "Żytał," Goldowski answered. "A vacancy just opened up there. I'll try to get us a little more money, and then we can expand. Take on some new section editors, some other positions, so it goes. Just like here. It'll progress." One day, some very nervous Plagites were standing in a fat man's office. The fat man was gracious. His face was round, but he had an unexpectedly sharp nose, and on that nose were tortoise-shell glasses, and through those glasses he looked over the young people benevolently. He was wearing a soft Icelandic wool sweater with a line of silver buttons running over his belly. "Well, let's sign some contracts then," the important man said. The Brotherhood had no clue how he was important or whose boss he was. They sat at the desk, bent down over the contracts, and one by one graced them with their signatures. "And now let's introduce you to the editorial board." Abram rubbed his hands together. "Chop chop, march!" One after another, a sparse line of people stretched out behind him. It was the beginning of November. The weather was cold, rainy and dark. Warsaw's ravens cawed angrily. The room for the editorial board was cloudy, and the lights had not been turned on. It was around 11 in the morning, but not very many had dragged themselves to work. There were a couple of heads visible behind desks, watching the newcomer's every move with their eyes, but nobody came to shake anybody's hand. "And here's the coffee room." Goldovsky waved a hand. "One of you girls put some coffee on, lots, and strong." "Hello, comrade journalists," he said, turning to the half-empty room. "Come, I'll introduce your new colleagues, and then we ought to run up a little meeting, eh?" The room's answer was silence. "Meeting's at 1, and we'd like everyone there, please. We're going to introduce daily news and a radio broadcast," Goldovsky commanded. The new employees quietly deposited themselves in empty seats, or things that functioned as seats, around the room. The coat rack standing in the corner was overflowing with wet overclothes. Other people came too. Friends, acquaintances, just to see how they were getting on in their new positions. Here and there half-audible muttering filled the clumsy silence. Every half-hour the new troop headed out for a smoke behind the building, coffee mugs still between their fingers. "Shit," Adam said. "They don't want us here at all." "What did you expect?" Goldovsky answered happily. "Of course they don't. We marched in to drink their coffee in their warm room. But that's not important. What's important is that Zittau is ours now. Those we don't sack will go themselves, believe me. We can do our own thing in complete peace, and you can't imagine how many supporters we have. Still, I've gone and felt around a bit here and there. We have some real heavyweights they don't have. I even got this one friendly guy, people's big favourite. He's coming too. It's a more authentic thing if we have those kinds of big names. OK, I'm going to go make a speech that'll make them shit their pants." The older members quietly started to appear, all of them gloomy as undertakers. Goldovsky took his leather jacket off, rolled up his sleeves, and went to the big table at the back of the room, where his colleagues, new and old, were slowly gathering. Some of them were standing, while others were sitting hunched over their work and pretending that they still had their jobs. Radio technicians, also in leather jackets, galloped in with wires and microphones and started feverishly setting up their tripods. "So," Goldovsky started, "greetings, everyone. I'll start with a short overview of the kind of changes we're planning to make and the kinds we're not. Let me emphasise that no one should worry that Zittau, which has up till now been a cultural publication, won't deal with culture anymore. Precisely the opposite. We're going to expand the page count devoted to culture. We're also planning to add thorough commentary on contemporary music, which doesn't just mean string quartets or chamber concerts. We have a very rich musical culture in Poland, and that certainly extends to developments in pop music. If we get into things that actually interest people, we'll gain a wider audience. This is a contemporary publication in every sense, which doesn't mean that profound and serious won't find a place anymore. We plan on turning more of our attention to social issues than before, that is, with the idea of looking for solutions. What purpose is criticism if it doesn't lead anywhere and only puts people in a bad mood? We need open debate from different sides that doesn't divide but unites. For example, if there's some constructive critique in one issue, then we'll have a response from the other side in the next one, so that people really get a sense of the meat of the issue. We have to explain points of view. Every problem has a solution. If the usual habit is selling outrage, then the rejuvenated Zittau is going to start selling peace. And we certainly ought to include cultural developments from outside Poland. We can't stay local in a globalising world where everything is connected with everything else. How many articles can you remember that introduced our readers to foreign literature, artists, or even to important scientific developments? but every tiny village folk dance evening gets a write-up. That's not the right scale. We need more translated articles about important issues, more contemporary philosophers and thinkers. We have them in our ranks too. More attention to translations and translators' works. Right now, translators are doing work that's totally invisible but colossal, and all Polish culture is indirectly standing on that. Next up is history. It can't just be current events. As far as I'm concerned, things that happened 3,000 years ago too. That's what reminds us that we're not the first people on the planet. There's been tons of culture before us, right? And history. Besides that, we don't really have any rules. If we want, we can print 4 issues in a row on a single theme. If we want, we can write an analysis of the New Testament and the Book of Revelation. Or if there's some painting we really like, we'll run a big story on it. The vision is open, free and playful. We won't reject any contribution because it doesn't match our profile. We have no conditions other than that it's gutsy, well done and powerful. If we want, we can write systematic criticism of everything we don't like. We'll rip things to pieces. And there's going to be funny too. If it's all just serious and boring all the time, what reader is going to bother to even glance at a mag like that? If there's not even a cover photo, just some 100-year-old logo, that's not a living publication, but almost an antique. We don't need mouldy academicism, but life, humour and passion. The things culture is made from. The things you expect from culture. Exhibition openings, premieres, somebody's jubilee. Not just 3 words somewhere above the impressum, but a genuine gossip column. Send a photographer. Will more people not then go? Maybe if I do, I'll see myself afterwards in Zittau. I should go. And we have to investigate. A journalist investigates. Sniffs around in things nobody would otherwise be willing to talk about. What's actually going on over there in the Ministry of Culture? And at the Theatre Council? The Film League? Who's on the payroll there? What are their duties? And the front cover of the magazine can be a badge of honour for every artist. They'll start competing to send us sketches just to get picked. Any publication is the face of its makers. Do our ideas seem radical to you? Well, are your ideas not? Filling 200 pages of dense, tiny writing with stories understood by 10 specialists. You'll still choose what you write about, what you say about it and how you say it. That's totally natural. And we will now do that together so that the change will not be so big. You do as you've always done, while we do what's never been done. The old readers will stay and we'll get new ones. There is absolutely not a shred of doubt that this approach will unify people who've thus far stood apart from each other. Cultural players, friends, consumers, the list goes on. It makes no sense that something like this has been lacking, but from now on, the paper that makes sure this niche gets filled will be Zittau. Thank you for your attention. Once the journalists leave, we'll set down upcoming work assignments. The air in the room was heavy. Only one calm pixie-cut Panny, who was actually the heart of the paper, agreed to speak to them. Everyone thinks that the vain boys who write the stories make a paper. Not so. In fact, behind all of them stands, unshakable like a mountain, not the editor, not the chief editor, but the managing editor. The one who actually does something. The person who is like God in heaven. No one knows her, no one's seen her. You say her name and no one's ever heard it, and yet it is she who takes care that the dates match up, that there's a stockpile of articles on hand. She directs, organises, leads, sees to it that there's coffee in the cabinet, that the light bulbs work, goes over if someone's gotten sick and brings his unfinished manuscripts back to the office, where someone else finishes them. In a word, she is the alpha and the omega, the oil in the machine, and she has no desire to, make a petulant face and storm recklessly out of the office, no matter what the situation or the people there are like. The paper has to go out. It is inescapable. So she patiently took her seat next to the new employees, took out a model of the paper, and started explaining what was there, what was missing, what to order from whom, what had greater or lesser importance, what could wait, the nature of their printing capabilities, and more. Simple, clear, logical, emotionless. At the same time, the rest of them put on their overcoats and disappeared one after the other into the cold Warsaw air. The next day they got sick, because some awful virus had broken into the editorial board and wrought destruction. It's clear that if you've sat at one and the same desk for 20 years, any kind of shuffling is very unpleasant. The new set, on the contrary, was all there the next morning, no sweat, and eventually even Soliswaf showed up, panting, red-faced and dishevelled. He'd been blowing off steam the night before. Unfortunately, that would not be much help for long. Clouds started to gather over our heroes' heads. Because, in his vanity, Goldovsky shouted everything from the rooftops. The people from the radio station would scarcely have been there if they'd not been enticed by the prospect of scandal. But the famous speech was broadcast over the radio, and all kinds of literary people awoke from their slumber. At the beginning they didn't understand anything. What now? They rubbed their eyes. Goldovsky? How did he get in there? Where? Into Zittau? What's he doing there, huh? Who'd he take along? Plaja? Who are they? And so it went. One by one people realised that something unprecedented had happened. Never before in the history of the world, well, maybe only during the Paris Commune, had people slipped in off the street to start producing national culture. Some urchins and old Goldovsky. He hasn't written anything in 10 years. Has anyone even read any Goldovsky at all? No, the answer resounded in unison. Never. He's not fit to read. And these rascals, where did he pick them up? Oh, they've apparently been producing some kind of samizdat. No, I haven't read it, and I don't intend to. There's nothing new in that kind of thing. There are always samizdats, but that doesn't give anybody the right to kick down the door and march on in. Help! Culture is under attack. I repeat, culture is under attack. When a stone is thrown into a calm pond, the water begins to ripple nicely outwards, but before long it's all ripples and all confusion. It was as if a death squad had been sent into Zittau, a group of dirty street poles, holsters on their belts and kirza boots on their feet, self-appointed cultural commissars. What's all this about? Now, what we'll do, one writer type said, is we won't write for them. We won't buy their mag, we won't mention its content, and we won't cite things out of it. Unfortunately, this was not to be, because people love howling if there's a reason to, even culture types. Everybody was indignant, from the most important members of unions to the pensioner interviewed on the street. Yes, I read Zittau 20 years ago. Recent years I haven't gotten around to it, but what's happening over there is totally unheard of. Everyone closed ranks, from choir leaders to members of the Cosmonautics Society. They didn't want to see any of Goldovsky in any position anywhere. Keep that man far away from all things holy in Poland. It was a bountiful time for newspapers. Every day on absolutely every page, including in the smallest voivodeship's smallest paper, which of course had a larger print count than any Zittau will ever have, were editorials expressing worry, fear, bewilderment and anger. Rumours started to spread, each wilder than the next. Goldovsky had apparently come to Zittau with 9 new people. They were all wearing long black leather jackets, they all smelled of Mahorka, they spat on the floor, and they didn't even have a high school education. In fact, there was even a rumour that they'd been kicked out of school. People started weaving all kinds of theories and mystifications, any that anybody might find useful, although it seemed hard to speak of use in the context of a publication that only a couple of 100 people ever bought from the newsstand. Everyone is lying, was the most radical view. Even still, there were a few people with a sense of humour, and they grinned and said, well, I'd never have expected anything like this in my life, but it's a bit exciting in its own way, eh? And funny. One or two even thought, cautiously, that the ability to see an opportunity, no matter how unlikely, and to bring it swiftly to fruition, is the characteristic mark of ambitious, capable people. There were 2 main opinions, more or less. On the one side were those who absolutely never, no, over my dead body, would never ever agree to concede the tiniest tittle of high culture to so-called regular people. That would be a patent vulgarity, considering that, as a field, art is so lofty, so profound, that only insiders can understand it, and those are the only people to whom Zittau should speak. Others cautiously thought that, maybe it wouldn't be so bad if a driver, a milkmaid, a secretary, or, well, any person who likes reading books should also read Zittau. Why go about pillorying these people? Tractor drivers don't go to the theatre? Eventually things got so heated that unhappy functionaries had to write up formal complaints in newspaper columns. These people weren't guilty of anything. Things had simply gotten out of hand. And what came of it? One of these functionaries at the Ministry of Culture looked bashfully at the floor, mumbled something for a time, said that the whole business was very hazy and confused, that they'd received very contradictory signals, some of which have turned out to be outright untrue, and that an investigation is ongoing. But there's no cause for alarm. I don't currently have full clarity, the functionary added firmly, and we can't simply offer unconfirmed assertions. We can't say that the situation is such and such, if it may actually be somehow different. Still, it's pure claptrap to put words in the mouth of the Ministry of Culture, or to suggest that no one here has ever seen Jittau, held it, or read it. Nevertheless, this was all only the beginning. It soon genuinely seemed that World War III had broken out. The nation was terribly excited to have such a blessed opportunity. They had an enemy, finally. Here, right at hand, and as time went on, any and all grudges were collected together and poured with great relief onto the heads of the Plagites. You might ask about the cause of this unforeseen burst of societal activity, but alas, an answer is impossible to find. Decades of pent-up disapproval flowed in, and Goldovsky was simply the lightning rod who actually grounded the shock to Jittau relatively safely. The Brotherhood was understandably unready for such a barrage. They staggered under its weight and raised shields of silence for their defence, and they tried to keep working despite it all. When they got home from the editorial board around midnight, each of them began work on their personal contributions. Someone had to read a book in 2 hours and write a review. Someone had to assess a film, so they were still always writing something, even if their heads were full of worry. Every little while they had snap meetings where they made snap decisions and then sent an intern to the pharmacy for heart drops. At night they slept fitfully for 3 or 4 hours, and only with a big dose of bromide. Grey in the face, oversmoked, underslept, underfed. Any appetite was gone. They trudged from the editorial board to home and back again. Their nerves were as tight as violin strings. It takes time for people to adjust to things, Adam tried to comfort them, as if this was a typical situation in which everything was under control. But the reality was that they, who had been mostly loved, were suddenly the most hated people in the entire country. Solisvav endured 3 weeks before his health gave in. "You guys do it," he said. "I'm going to head out. Goldovsky got me a place in Macedonia. That's just as good as going to Greece. I have to relax. My heart is doing such weird things, and I just don't know what's going on. I went to the doctor. He said it's not a joke." And off he went. He promised to send his contributions by mail and to lead them into the future as sure-handedly as before. At the same time, another friend's dog died, only to be buried by this comrade in the garden at lightning speed before work. Bad things have a habit of happening all at once. Though surrounded by stunning views in all their natural beauty, with mountains on the horizon, Solisvav spent his 3-month medicinal sabbatical in a dark, rented doghouse in a basement, going out only when he needed to buy cigarettes. To avoid going out too often, he bought them by the block, but for some reason the block ran out as quickly as the pack once had. He sent 2 letters back home. In the first, he still gave instructions about Jittau's new design and thematics. In the second, he argued that it would be better to just write off the whole project. "It's impossible to do anything in this country. Let's close up. What's the point in struggling?" When he got home, he was grim to look at. He was as grey as a shade, nervous and irritable. He jumped around here and there in flying visits, as was his wont, stopping at Zofia's, sticking his head in at Ada's, saying that he was sleeping poorly and that his heart was out of sorts. When the mistress tried to probe him carefully about what had actually happened, he only waved his hand. "This country is a complete swamp. Jealous assholes. No point wasting all your energy here. I don't even plan to read the newspaper. Gonna get away. Unplug myself completely from this world. You might want to watch less TV too." And he announced indignantly that he didn't plan to read another book for as long as he lived, and that he hated literature more than anything else. "Doing cultural work in Poland is the same for everyone. When you get attention, they absolutely denigrate you," he said. "But do I need that? I don't know. Everything's gone rancid all of a sudden. No matter what you do, and especially if you do it well, you just get pointless abuse. I don't want to touch anything. It's all just grime. Who needs it? The moment you try to change the tiniest thing, everything just blows up in your face. It's horrible, and not just because it makes you sick and it's nasty for your soul. It's depressing because you see just how many people deal in stupidity, full of pure spite. People don't even realise what they're throwing out of their mouths or why they're doing so. It's a jealous and reactionary people. Nothing's been said, nothing's changed, nothing's ready. The world isn't a better place. I don't even want to think about how all the unknown heroes must have felt when they tried and failed. It's too cruel. What are you going to do now then? Ada asked. I still don't know. I'm thinking it over. Whatever. I'll go work at a gas station and sleep at the train station. Makes no difference, he said. Right now I can live at a friend's country house. Warm weather's coming. Don't have to do anything in summer, and then I guess we'll see. I'm going to start running in the woods. Listen, you can stay here for a couple of days. The doctors want to drag me to the hospital. They'll do some tests. I'll be back very soon. Meantime, would you look after the house? Ada asked, worried. Suliswaf nodded in agreement. Yeah, I'll look after it. What's there to look after? Ada took some reading and some crosswords along to the hospital, and the thought of the hospital's flannel pyjamas, too short and too wide, made her chuckle already. There are other people in a hospital, of course, so you can find one or two to chat to. The windows are large and there's lots of light. All around is that clean, acidic medicine smell. The nurses' white coats rustle, and the doctors walk around with serious expressions and stethoscopes around their necks, checking people's pulses with strong but delicate hands. Every few minutes they're called off to somewhere, into the operating room, or it's meal time again. At the end of it all, they write up a portion of new drugs and instruct you to come back for a check-up in 6 months. Ada was jaunty and rested when she got out of the hospital. She thought cheerfully of her beloved little house, waiting for her, surrounded by flowers and greenery. And what did she find when she got home? The garden was strewn with empty beer, wine and vodka bottles. Mountains of food, half-chewed chicken legs and the like, were stinking atop the yard table, while under it lay a big bloated rotten fish in polonaise with a fork stuck into its side. The plant boxes were full of cigarette butts. Half of the house's blankets had been pulled out into the yard and were soaked from the rain. Chairs were lying on their sides between bushes. As she was cleaning up, Mistress Nosek found some sunglasses, a girl's shoes, a watch with a broken crystal, and a bloody handkerchief. Her heart was so weak that she might have turned right back around towards the hospital. But instead, Ada went into the kitchen, where the damage was noticeably less severe, got the stash of coffee she'd hidden for a rainy day out of the cupboard, and made herself a manly potful with the colour and strength of tar. Behold my romantics, she thought crossly. Heroes out to remake the world. Don't take advice. Didn't I say, you want to change something, you do it secretly, invisibly. But oh no, got to have the hullabaloo. And then they come cry and square the accounts in my garden. Bunch of toddlers.